Hey guys, welcome to week 8. You guys made it. Yay! I'm so proud of your guys' efforts and everything thus far. You guys are almost to the finish line. Just a reminder, when you guys see the light bulb icon, just know that is a chance for extra credit points on the gradebook, and you can get a total of 10 max extra credit points for these weekly lectures. Our checklist. So this week we have review feedback from the Module 7 discussion board. That is going to be your guys' peers who have responded to your guys' posts, giving you guys feedback, asking questions, asking you maybe to change something that doesn't seem right to them, or maybe go into something else. The Modulate discussion board, this is where you guys are going to be posting your presentation. Your presentation should be in an MP4 file. Make sure you guys test that and see if it works first before you post it so that your peers and I have access to that. And then also it says reply to all students who post. So what that means is I've noticed that some students aren't posting their discussion board on time. And so that limits other students who would like to reply to them. So just make sure that you guys are replying to whoever's posted before the due date and the deadline, because otherwise you guys are going to miss out on peer feedback. Make sure you guys take the final exam. I have created your guys' final Kahoot. Yay! It's really fun. It's very low key. It helps you guys remember what terminology and facts we've learned through our weekly quizzes. A lot of those questions are going to be on your final exam, so try to take advantage of that. There's also a link in the announcements tab, a hyperlink that you guys can click on. Make sure you guys take that final exam by Saturday. And then make sure that you guys, by Saturday, submit all the missing work. So this is either a missing work, late work, corrections that I might have docked you a few points on, or if you guys didn't look at the rubric before you guys submitted your work, you guys can earn those full points back. Just make sure you guys submit that by Saturday. There are still a lot of zeros in the gradebook, you guys. I have to place zeros in the gradebook as a placeholder for you guys to know what is missing. But once you guys get that made up, I promise I change your grade almost the same day, if not the day later. You guys can always shoot me a message if you guys need an extension. Just let me know ahead of time because I'm running out of time to put those extensions in. Any grade is better than a 0, I promise. And then just make sure that you guys are taking advantage of that extra credit. You guys can get 5 points extra credit for the end of course eval that I have later on in this presentation. And then I also put an announcement on it in the announcements tab with a UR link. And you guys should have received like 2, if not 3 emails, not just from me, but from like Ivy Tech and stuff like that to take it. All right, so the Module 8 learning goals, it looks like a lot, but that's everything that you guys should be able to do. So in this last module of VISCOM 104, you guys are going to be recording a presentation of yourself for our course project, and you're going to share it with the class on the last discussion board. Then you guys are going to give your guys' peers feedback about their project, and then you guys are going to take the final exam. Make sure that your guys' project is between 4.5 to 5 minutes. It can go over a little bit. I'm not going to count off, but just make sure that you guys don't go over 7 minutes. And then basically the learning goals, I know it looks like a lot, but I'm just going to read some of them. You guys should be able to describe, appreciate, and apply the history, development, and standards of experience interface design. You guys should be able to describe and use UX, UI terminology. This is going to be really great for you guys' presentation. I'm so excited to hear you guys use the terminology of mock-ups and interviews and how that helps you guys find your findings and back up your answers and redesigns. You guys should be able to demonstrate an understanding of the various methods used in this field. You guys should be able, through the various assignments that we have done in this class, communicate your research, analysis, scenarios, etc., which show comprehension of the end user's needs. And then you guys should be able to develop an awareness of all interrelated factors that impact user experience, like ADA compliance, mobile, user-centered design, societal factors, etc. The presentation rubric. So the purpose of this presentation is to pitch your project to an audience. You have to kind of think about it and be like, I know that she's my teacher. I know they're my peers. I know that I have been posting updates and getting feedback, from my peers and vice versa, stuff like that. But you have to pretend like we have no idea what your project is about, what you've done. We have no idea what mock-ups are, what user testing is, why you did what you did. So just make sure you're very thorough and detailed in your guys' presentations. Imagine that we are the stakeholders of your project, so pitch your design or redesign to us. But however, you will not have enough time to review every single section of your design brief. It's a lot. So go through your research fairly quickly and then focus most on showing the interactive prototype with Figma. Make sure that your guys' presentation to us and your interactive prototype work before you guys do the recording, because any technical difficulties will count as your time. And then if you guys remember in week 1, we did make free accounts to use different applications for this course, one of which was Canva. And this is the reason why we signed up for Canva. I don't know if you guys can tell, but I use Canva to record these Zoom lectures. So for your presentation, I recommend using Canva. Good presentation feedback. What does good presentation feedback looks like? We are going to watch a TED Talk about the secret to giving great feedback. Some things are showing impact, positive feedback, data points, blur words, micro yes, 4-part formula, and in on a question. And I'm going to turn on closed captions if I can. I might not be able to. Hold on.
If you look at like a carpenter, they have a toolbox. A dentist, they have their drills. In our era and the type of work most of us are doing,
There we go.
What we most need is actually centered around being able to give and receive feedback well. Humans have been talking about feedback for centuries. In fact, Confucius, way back in 500 BC, talked about how important it is to be able to say difficult messages well. But to be honest, we're still pretty bad at it. In fact, a recent Gallup survey found that only 26% of employees strongly agree that the feedback they get actually improves their work. Those numbers are pretty dismal. So what's going on? The way that most people give their feedback actually isn't brain friendly. People fall into one of two camps. Either they're of the camp that is very indirect and soft, and the brain doesn't even recognize that feedback is being given, or it's just simply confused. Or they fall into the other camp of being too direct. And with that, it tips the other person into the land of being defensive. There's this part of the brain called the amygdala, and it's scanning at all times to figure out whether the message has a social threat attached to it. With that, we'll move forward in defensiveness, we'll move backwards in retreat. And what happens is the feedback giver then starts to dysregulate as well. They add more ums and ahs and justifications, and the whole thing gets wonky really fast. It doesn't have to be this way. I and my team have spent many years going into different companies and asking who here is a great feedback giver. Anybody who's named again and again, we actually bring into our labs to see what they're doing differently. What we find is that there's a 4-part formula that you can use to say any difficult message well. Okay, are you ready for it? Here we go. So the first part of the formula is what we call the micro yes. Great feedback givers begin their feedback by asking a question that is short but important. It lets the brain know that feedback is actually coming. It would be something, for example, like, do you have 5 minutes to talk about how that last conversation went? Or I have some ideas for how we can improve things. Can I share them with you? This micro yes question does 2 things for you. First of all, it's going to be a pacing tool. It lets the other person know that feedback is about to be given. And the second thing it does is it creates a moment of buy-in. I can say yes or no to that yes or no question. And with that, I get a feeling of autonomy. The second part of the feedback formula is going to be giving your data point. Here, you should name specifically what you saw or heard and cut out any words that aren't objective. There's a concept we call blur words. A blur word is something that can mean different things to different people. Blur words are things that are not specific. So, for example, if I say, you shouldn't be so defensive, or you could be more proactive. What we see great feedback givers doing differently is they'll convert their blur words into actual data points. So for example, instead of saying, you are reliable, we would say, you said you'd get that email to me by 11, and I still don't have it yet. Specificity is also important when it comes to positive feedback. And the reason for that is that we want to be able to specify exactly what we want the other person to increase or diminish. And if we stick with blurb words, they actually won't have any clue, particularly what to do going forward to keep repeating that behavior. The third part of the feedback formula is the impact statement. Here you name exactly how that data point impacted you. So for example, I might say, because I didn't get the message, I was blocked on my work and couldn't move forward. Or I really liked how you added those stories because it helped me grasp the concepts faster. It gives you a sense of purpose and meaning and logic between the points, which is something the brain really craves. The fourth part of the feedback formula is a question. Great feedback givers wrap their feedback message with a question. They'll ask something like, well, how do you see it? Or this is what I'm thinking we should do, but what are your thoughts on it? What it does is it creates commitment rather than just compliance. It makes the conversation no longer be a monologue, but rather becomes a joint problem-solving situation. But there's one last thing. Great feedback givers not only can say messages well, but also they ask for feedback regularly. In fact, our research on perceived leadership shows that you shouldn't wait for feedback to be given to you, what we call push feedback, but rather you should actively ask for feedback, what we call pulling feedback. Pulling feedback establishes you as a continual learner and puts the power in your hands. The most challenging situations are actually the ones that call for the most skillful feedback, but it doesn't have to be hard. Now that you know this four-part formula, you can mix and match it to make it work for any difficult conversation.
I love that video. It's so informative. All right, so your guys' presentations. This is what your presentation instructions look like. Of course, you guys can use other applications instead of Canva, like Adobe, Google Slides, Keynote, PowerPoint, Prezi, anything like that. Just make sure it works. I've had people they make this amazing presentation and then it doesn't work when they go to record their video. Yes, make sure that you guys' guidelines are close to 5 minutes. No points will be taken off if it's between 4.5 and 5.5. I did have some students last semester who went to 7 minutes. That is totally fine. I'm not going to count off. Just try not to go over 7 minutes. And then make sure you guys test out your video to ensure that it works properly before posting it and submitting it. Again, yes, your file should be an MP4. Just try to be respectful to your guys' peers when giving feedback. Follow along, take notes if you can, give feedback on the discussion board, stuff like that. I know that I individually have a paper when I look at videos just so that I'm not like getting distracted or I'm making sure that I'm looking for specific things. So I have a rubric in front of me whenever I'm grading your guys' presentations. And it's exactly what the rubric is for the presentation, of course. But I'm filling in notes. So eye contact, filler words like, stuff like that. And then I also look at your guys's like structure, like the design layout. Try to keep in mind design fundamentals when creating your presentation. Make sure that all of the font is legible and that you guys don't have any like font that doesn't like pop out. So for example, this one, I want to choose like a light tan. If this is something that I think is important, I want it to pop. So being the respectful in this are very important on this slide. So I'm making it pop with a bright yellow. Course eval. So it looks like some of you guys have taken the course eval. But again, it is worth 5 points extra credit. This is the QR code, so you guys can scan this on your mobile device and take it there. All I need is a screenshot of proof that you guys have completed the evaluation. There is an assignment for that under assignments. It's called like end of course eval. Just submit, it's like a PNG, JPEG, a JPEG that doesn't have the E in it, obviously a JPG. PNG, PDF works. If you guys have photo scissors on your computer, depends on whether it's a Mac or Windows, or something else, but all I need is a screenshot. And then your guys' final Kahoot. So the exam is ready, it's open. You guys are going to get an hour. Any official accommodations that you guys have,